Namaskaram. I'm very happy and honored to be here. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Madam President Draupadi Ji for graciously inaugurating this event and hosting us at Rashtrapati Bhavan. I'm going to bore my children and grandchildren with a blow account of every moment spent here. It's been such a lovely experience. Special thanks to President of Sahitya Academy, Madhav Ji, and the Secretary, Srinivas Rao Ji. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful panel headed by Pratibha Ji. And now right off the bat, I'm going to say that I agree and disagree with Pratibha Ji. When it comes to writing, I agree that it should not come down, or any discussion should not come down to what body parts you have. Writing transcends gender, that, this, everything. But I'm also going to say that I'm a proud feminist. And in many parts of the world, feminist is still a bad word. And in 2025, we still need to clarify that feminism is humanism. It always was about equal rights for everybody. It is not about giving an unfair advantage to one gender or the other. It is about setting right social evils. It is about trying to find a peaceful resolution to the battle of the sexes, which has gone on for ages and which will probably go on for ages. Now, having said that, let's talk about feminist literature in this context. It is very significant because, call me biased, but I feel readers as well as writers have a more nuanced, more sensitive and sensible approach to all the current day issues raging out there. This is very important, this middle path of moderation. Today's world is an age of chaos. Thanks to social media, which has taken over our lives, we are enabling trolling, uncivilized behavior, and bad conduct. So this is where we need more readers and writers to engage with the issues of the day. I'm also very grateful to all the feminist warriors from the past who have risked so much, and they've sacrificed even more so that we can all enjoy the rights that we have today, which we take for granted. My respected panelist, Tamilachi Tangapandian, she said something very nice. She talked about all the mystic poets from the past. There are so many examples, but poets like Andal, Karekal Ammayar, Mahadevi Akka, Bangalore Nagaratnamal. There are so many artists who have done so much for this cause to fight social evils. They've fought for education for women because it is knowledge which gives us freedom to truly be. We've addressed issues like child marriage. At one point, it was the norm for a 12-year-old to marry a 60-year-old. We brought about change. We fought for the rights of widows. But there are still areas which can use improvement. We are still fighting the good fight, and I'm grateful for the example, the lived experience of those from the past who have taught us to fight for what is right with courage and grace and dignity. Now, at this point, I'm going to add a cautionary note about feminist rage. My daughters hate when I do that. They call it lecture mode, so bear with me. But feminist rage is fashionable today. It is great for grabbing eyeballs. But I would suggest that as creators of art, we should be more responsible when it comes to rage, because it is such a corrosive emotion. It destroys indiscriminately. As a dancer, as a Bharatanatyam dancer, we talk about the Navarasas. And Rautra, or anger, is very different from Veera, which is strength. Anger or rage is the sum total of all our fears and insecurities. It comes from a place of weakness. It gives the impression of empowerment, but without being empowering, which is why I feel feminist literature in this day and age, we should let the strength shine through, and we need not glorify toxic rage. And as I mentioned already, I'm grateful for feminist warriors because they allow us to be the dwarves sitting pretty on the shoulders of giants. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to dwarves or giants. I'm just saying that it is lovely that there's this symbiosis between the past and the present, which spills over into the future and shapes it. So now when we talk about rage and the past spilling over into the present, I want to talk about another issue which is very significant in literature. I'm talking about the generational trauma carried by us Indians because we've been under the yoke of tyrants, of foreign invaders. We talk about it a lot, and I feel the sensible approach to this is to reclaim our national spirit in the truest sense, to reclaim our myths and legends. And as mythologists, we try to contribute to that. We try to preserve our past, which is a treasure trove, an inherited treasure, a gift which contains the wisdom of the ages. So we try to preserve this by retellings with reinterpretation, and we also seek to reform. We seek to fix the problematic parts of it. Now, this is another issue which is there today because you have people on the extreme right who are carried away by nationalistic fervor, and we can't honestly endorse Gaurakshak type behavior. And on the extreme left, you have people who still cater to white men's ideas about how brown people ought to conduct themselves, and they are always hating on India and Indians, and that's not acceptable either. I talked about the middle path of moderation. So as creators and consumers of literature, we need to bear this in mind. We need to focus on moderation. We need to, as Indians, it should be us who can say these are the things, problem areas in our country. We need to fix it from within. And that does not make you an anti-national. Now, let us talk about, Pratibha Ray ji has written about Draupadi, and Sita is such a fixture in the collective consciousness for an Indian. Let us talk about one of the problematic, controversial aspects of the Ramayana, which was Sita's Agni Pariksha. So it's not ancient history, ancient myth, it's still relevant because in the Agni Pariksha, Sita chose to showcase her purity by entering the flames, and myth has a certain deeper layer of meaning, certain profound significance which is lost on the common people. What they see is a woman entered the flames and her purity kept her safe and she emerged on the other side, and therefore it falls to women to prove their purity. Male desire, that is always legitimized and encouraged at its ugliest. Feminine desire, on the other hand, if it is not being shamed and stigmatized, it's being exploited. So this is how it starts, real-world ramifications of stories. And women are called upon to prove their purity. Fire burns indiscriminately. It doesn't see whether you're male, female, woman, child, nothing. It doesn't matter. It consumes everything. And this has been our takeaway. But let's look at, we have a history of Johar, Sati, when women burnt on the altar of the male ego. Let's read today's newspapers. There's always some woman. We read that, some poor woman has been consumed by the flames because she couldn't cough up the dowry for her in-laws. We read about it and women are still burning. This needs to stop. We need to be more responsible. And let us look at, I'll just quickly share the deeper meaning of this Agni Pariksha. Why did it happen? Look deeper. Myth has story within story within story. So what happened in ancient times when the Devas and Asuras were at war? Vishnu took the side of the Devas, unequal battle. So Diti, the mother of the Asuras, she went to Bhrigu Muni's wife, who was a powerful sorceress, a woman of great ascetic merit. She said, please intervene on behalf of my children. And she couldn't say no. So she went to battle on the side of the Asuras. She saw that it was a lopsided battle. She froze all the Devas. They couldn't move. And then the Asuras start to slaughter them. And Vishnu says, what you are doing is unfair. She says, you do not get to talk about fair and unfair. What were you doing all this time? He warns her, men do not like powerful women, do they? Whether they're gods or mortals. He says, if you do not lift your spell, I will release my Sudarshana Chakra. And she says, do your worst. And he does behead this good woman. And Bhrigu Muni is furious. He says, how dare you? She did what she thought was right. You did what you thought was right. How dare you kill her? You will pay for it. You will pay for this. You will know what it is like to lose someone you love. And Vishnu, famous for his mental equanimity, he said, I accept. I accept. If you think this is what I deserve, I will accept. Lakshmi steps forward. She said, if you are going to suffer, I will share with you. And That is how Rama and Sita were torn apart. They paid the price for it. This is the obscure working of destiny. And when we are creating or consuming literature in any form, we need to remember that the essence of it is always about love, peace, and compassion. And we should never ever be party to the weaponization of literature, mythology in any form for petty political gain and allow it to divide us. And on this note, I would like to say thank you so much. It's been amazing to be here.